I am Teddy Press, world-renowned art historian and published author.
And I'm Melissa Saki, head curator for the Metropolitan Museum of Art. We are currently in the Vatican visiting the Sistine Chapel. It is the chapel in the Vatican Palace in which the Pope resides.
It is also one of the most important places in Catholicism. This is where the new Pope is chosen, and it is also where special ceremonies and events are held.
Now, from the outside, the building looks rather plain, but that will change once we head inside.
When you walk into the chapel, your eyes are drawn to the ceiling. It's so intricate and detailed.
The ceiling frescoes were done by Michelangelo, and they took 4 years to complete.
He was commissioned by Pope Julius II to complete the frescoes. However, Michelangelo considered himself a sculptor, not a painter. The Sistine Chapel had went through recent renovation, and the Pope wanted the original painting on the ceiling to be replaced. However, this is not what Michelangelo was originally asked to paint.
That's right. Michelangelo was originally asked to paint a geometric pattern with the apostles as decoration. Instead, he proposed the Old Testament scenes currently on the vault. Now here we have a diagram of the ceiling frescoes. The light blue pictures are those of the ancestors of Jesus. Lavender scenes depict the salvation of the Jewish people. The orange and pink are pictures of the prophets and the Sibyls. The most famous ones are the 9 central panels depicting stories from the book of Genesis. The yellow scenes are the stories of creation, and the green include the creation and downfall of Adam and Eve, and the last 3 depict Noah and the flood. Let's take a closer look at some of these panels.
This is titled The Creation of Adam, and is the story of the creation of the first man, Adam. We see God and Adam reaching out to each other, these 2 monumental figures reaching out to close the space. It's almost transcendental.
However, not all of the chapel is like this. Michelangelo had taken a year-long break from painting the ceiling, and it is easy to spot the differences between his later works, such as The Creation of Adam, compared to the original frescoes.
You can see this easily when comparing to the Deluge, one of the earlier frescoes he completed. It is the story of the Great Flood where God drowned the earth, but spared Noah and those on the ark. There are multiple stories within the fresco, using water as separation. It also contains dozens of complex and detailed figures and objects, and from far away, they are more difficult to see.
This is very different compared to some of his later works, such as the Libyan Sibyl. A Sibyl was a woman in ancient times who could foretell the future and give prophecies of a god.
But this is a great example of how his later paintings constrained more simple subjects, all the while giving them a larger presence.
One more thing we notice on the ceiling is the columns that separate the frescoes. These are all actually fake architectural pieces that were painted by Michelangelo to look like borders.
They look so real, though, as if they were part of the vaulted ceiling. The ceiling is not the only painting Michelangelo was commissioned to paint for the chapel.
That's right. Over 2 decades later, in 1534, Pope Paul III commissioned him to paint the wall behind the altar. This is the Last Judgment, and it is a sight to see.
Now, this is where the Pope would give Mass from. So imagine sitting in a church service with this as the backdrop. It took him around 8 years to complete it. You could imagine people probably watching the Master at work if they ever got bored during Mass.
It is composed of over 300 figures in an infinite variety of poses and fills the wall to the edges.
Despite its density, if you look closer you can see it is clearly organized into tiers and quadrants with small subgroups and pairings. We have seen this story told before in other church art, such as the Last Judgment tympanum at St. Foy. It has Jesus as the focal point. In this part, you will see the souls will go to heaven, and on the other, those who are damned to go to hell.
To this day, these paintings are some of the best known artworks in the world. Many painters would later learn and be inspired by these paintings.
Also, it recently went through a cleaning. This has brought to light his mastery, use of colors, and use of chiaroscuro. This cleaning has restored the beauty of the building from the time of Michelangelo to transport us back to the Italian Renaissance. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.